Love, love, until I feel the breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Hello, welcome to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Jessica Schmidt. She's done youth ministry and particularly working with women, young women. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you, Geraldine. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, you've been on our show before, and it's great to have you back. I'd love to know more about your faith journey and how you came to the Lord. I know you shared that in the first show, but it'd be great for the new viewers to hear about your journey in faith.
Yeah, sure. When I was going through high school and working hard at studying, I really wanted to have a lot of attention and recognition for doing really well, and I'd worked really hard in year 12, but I just found that something was missing, and that sense that something was missing kind of carried through to uni. I just saw that what everyone was chasing wasn't really what I wanted, and I wanted something more from life. I bumped into a friend who invited me to a youth ministry program called Net Ministries, and it was really through that program where I just saw the possibility of God being real in people's lives, especially young people's lives. And so I was 19 then, and I just had this real experience of God through that ministry, and a real experience of the Holy Spirit.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was Net Ministry?
So Net runs every year as kind of like a gap year, where young people sign on for the year and they get trained for a month in Brisbane, and then they get put into teams, and those teams get sent to different cities in Australia, and they live there for the year, working in schools, high schools, and running retreats and youth groups for the young people there.
Yeah, that's incredible that you were trying to ask God whether you're real, and then you got sort of right into it.
Yeah, that's right. And I found, the first few weeks of being on the Net team were just incredible. They were really fun and really pushed me to my limits.
Yeah, and you experienced, that was very important for you to experience acceptance and love, which showed you God's love and acceptance, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I guess it was, through all of my time searching for God, I guess I was also searching for a place where I could call home, a place where I felt accepted. And after experiencing God's love, I just had a new confidence, I was all right, I was fine as I am, and that just opened up my ability to, love others and to receive their love and to build community. Yeah.
What is it about Christianity that what is it about the message of Jesus that reached you? Is it the scriptures, or what was the message of Jesus, would you say, that really attracted you to him?
Well, I guess in different seasons it's been different, because, there's a lot that can be said for the gospel of it. I think overall I love that Jesus took those who, really didn't know where to go, didn't know what to do, those who were really wounded by society. And I guess we all can feel a bit like we're carrying this ugly stuff, this gross stuff inside. And so, the Holy Spirit takes that and makes it shine so that we're proud to be called disciples. Yes. And when Jesus rose from the dead, he kept his wounds, and those wounds were shining, and he kind of does that with everybody. Those things we hide, he transforms that. Yeah,
so it's like he washes our shame, would you say, that kind of and you can actually show your weaknesses as a Christian, would you say? Yeah,
your weaknesses become your strengths almost, because that's where God has really come into your life.
Wow. Yeah. Did you find when you were doing ministry that you're struggling with something and how your weakness turned to strength? Can you remember anything that you can think of?
Well, what comes to mind was that I was really shy, actually, talking in front of people. I was so shy, a little quiet girl. And when I was put on the Sydney team, we had to give talks in front of 200 year 11s or year 10s or year 9s, all these high school kids who hadn't heard about the gospel in that way before. And I was asked to give talks on self-esteem. And yeah, I was so shy. I was so scared at the beginning, but I think after my first talk, when I finished, I felt so confident, so empowered. And I just knew what I was saying was true for my life and true for so many others, that it didn't matter, you know, if I made a mistake or if my joke wasn't funny. It just was a part of the journey.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because we all have our different types of weaknesses, and it's amazing how God in His power can actually strengthen us. For me, if someone gets angry with me, I feel very weak and I feel very scared, and that's my worst nightmare, for people to get angry with me. And yet, when I go to God for comfort and strength, that's when I feel the strength and the comfort, and actually through that weakness that leads me to God because of my fear of anger.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And do you think that there's relevancy of this message to the youth, and how the adults or the older people can reach this message to the youth?
I think often older people are a bit worried about how they'll come across, and I think that's a real barrier, because I guess we're all humans, you know, and we're all on a journey. But I think when older people kind of see young people as like, you know, a new breed or a different kind of person, it's really hard to relate. I remember in my parish, I had a few friends who were a lot older than me. They were like in their 60s, and I'd see them and I just ask, you know, how they were going, and they'd just tell me about their life. But I felt like we had something in common just because we went to church together, and we could share a joke. Yeah, and so I guess it's about putting down those fears and those worries, and just, you know, having a joke with someone and sharing a bit of your life with them.
Yeah, so you would say to older people, just relax and just be yourself, and it's okay. Yeah,
even be a little bit vulnerable, it's okay.
Yeah, maybe share something like, look, I'm not too sure what you like, but what do you like? Like, rather than pretend that you know, are you saying that the elderly or the older people shouldn't pretend to know? They could just ask, what would you like?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can see with Pope Francis as well, when he takes the selfies with the young people.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably wouldn't do that with his other cardinal friends.
That's true. Yeah, so he's open to be vulnerable, that maybe he might say something wrong, and yet he gives it a go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, we go for a break now. You've been watching Spirit of Life. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Jessica Schmidt. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you.
It's been great to have you, and also, you know, it's very interesting for the older generation and myself to understand, you know, youth and how we can reach to young people with the message of Christ's love. Yeah. And do you think that the message of also God's forgiveness, you know, will reach youth, and how to do that? Yeah, for sure. I think it's a bit it's interesting to think about, because I guess young people these days have all sorts of identities that having gone to school, maybe, you know, not in Catholic schools, but the youth culture is so full of blurring the lines of what's okay and what's not okay, that young people really struggle with trying to figure out, you know, are they all right before God? I guess when we talk about forgiveness, we've got to talk about sin. And that's a bit scary for young people, you know? Like, there are a lot of issues that, you know, the young church are, you know, trying to figure out and see where they believe or what they believe about it. But I guess in essence, you know, God just wants to accept us and love us. And the way that we see ourselves and the way that we act, and when we do things that we feel like God would hate us for, that we can just tell the Lord, you know, tell Jesus, you know, I'm sorry, this is gross, and it's been in my life for so long, but I want God more, you know, I want to know you more. And I think just that act of, you know, surrender really can change everything. And that's what I think, that's what forgiveness has been in my life,
because I've struggled to see, you know, how can I live as a Christian in this world where my friends are all doing crazy things and I just want to join because I want to be friends too.
Yeah. So would you say, when you say crazy things, would you refer that as sin?
Yeah, sometimes, and other times it's hard to tell, you know. It's a bit blurry for me in terms of, you know, hanging out with your friends and what really do you really know what you're doing, and do other people know what they're doing?
Yeah. So there's a you're saying there's a kind of blurring to whether it's actually wrong or moral or immoral or a bad thing.
Yeah. I think that just comes with living in such a relative society where you say, you know, your friend says, I don't think it's wrong, so it's not wrong. But,
yes,
you know,
if it feels good and they can't think of it affecting anyone, then why is it bad? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I guess in those times I just, you know, remember that God wants the best for me and that He will guide me, and that's fine, you know.
And how about an older person correcting a young person? You know, how would you like to be corrected? You know, inverted commas. You know, like you know, or you don't want to be corrected.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, maybe for want of a better word, how do you give positive criticism?
Well, I know for my life, I mean, with older people in my life, I've always struggled to hear any sort of criticism. I don't know, maybe it's just in your development, you really want to know that you're doing well, and, you know, just the hint of criticism feels like rejection. Wow. So if you can show acceptance and say, maybe something like, I don't know who, like, hey, Billy, you know, I've seen you're doing this, but I see so much potential in you. Do you even see that in yourself? You can do heaps more. But I mean, I'd always go for the road of acceptance, even if it looks like it's really bad. That acceptance has the power to change your heart. So
what you would say is communicate that you love them and accept them, and then say, I can see more potential. I could see you improve a little bit on that. Something a little bit softer, like you. I guess go gently. Well, it's important for the different generations, because, you know, when I was a young person, it was like people were pretty hard on us. So it's you know, it's easy for us to be hard on people because we've had the hard serve. So that's really good for them to know. So what would you also say is how do the older people bring new people into the church? What would you say? What would you say would be a young person's church? What would make it easier for them to enter a church?
Well, I guess we could use the examples from some of our Pentecostal friends in the way that they've, you know, targeted their church and the gospel to young people. I mean, the music really has changed the way a lot of people see church. I've been to one of the services just to see, and the way that they welcome people has really, really took an effect on me. The moment that you walk in, they say, welcome to church, and, you know, as if church is cool and you're there with people that want to be there. And so, I think we shouldn't be afraid to consider new creative ways to welcome people.
So that means a lot to them, to be welcomed and to feel good about it. And when we're working with young people, and you said that they like to own what they do, and so how do then bosses who probably have a vision work with a young person then, because they've got an idea of how it should be done, obviously the boss. So how would they communicate that to a young person without making them feel that they don't own it too?
Well, I guess in the area of work, it's a bit different maybe, because, I mean, young people know that it's a job and they'll get paid for it, and so I think a lot of, you know, we're smart to think that, you know, you've got to listen to your boss. Because
there's money involved, but maybe volunteer work perhaps would be...
I think in terms of like projects and taking on ministry, young people ministry, like youth groups and things, I think the initiative should come from the young person, or I feel like maybe young people, if they know they have resources, but creative freedom and ability to, you know, to own what, like what you said, to own what they want to do, it really empowers them. Yeah, because I mean, like even one of my friends, she wanted to start this young women's group, Blessed is She, but it wasn't really because anyone told her. It was us women just saying, we'd love this to happen. And if someone came in and said, well, you can do it this way, but not that way, I'd feel like, the energy's gone. It's not mine.
That's great to know that and understand. On that note, we'll go for a break. You've been watching Spirit of Life. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Jessica Schmidt. She ministers to young women through a ministry called Blessed is She. Welcome back.
Thanks, Geraldine.
It's fantastic that you've got this vision for this new ministry. Could you tell me more about the vision you have for the Blessed is She?
Well, it's actually a combination of 3 other friends and I. We just really saw that young women really didn't have a place to experience their faith. And often, you know, friendship with women, it can get a bit competitive. Even in the Christian world, it feels very much like there's a lot of, you know, it can feel a bit fake and a bit like we all have to put up appearances in order to be at church together. So we really want to, you know, break down some of those barriers and have really authentic friendships among women, and to build each other up on this faith journey, because it's not always easy.
Yes. Have you got an idea of how you're going to do that, like some strategies?
Well, we've started with 2 main groups. So we've got events happening in the east of Melbourne and events in the west of Melbourne, and we have some that are combined. So we did have a good get together for Lent, and we just discussed Eve in Genesis and her relationship with God, and we just had some, you know, cheese and tea, and really just asked God to bless us during the Lenten period.
Wow.
And we do have some events coming up too, talking about God the Father and how we are His daughters.
Oh, wow. And it's based around food, or based around a big hall, or is it more like a kind of a small gathering? How are you all doing that?
They're small gatherings. They're just in our houses, actually. So it's really personal.
Right, like a fellowship kind of thing.
But we mostly get together and share information through our Facebook group, Blessed is She Melbourne.
And have you got followers on Facebook through creating this group?
Yeah, we have grown quite a lot in the last few months, so that's really exciting.
Yeah, so it's like with Facebook, it's like friends of friends of friends kind of thing. And, and do you do regular posts? Like, how do you keep the Facebook going?
We post pretty regularly, and sometimes we have, prayer requests on Tuesday, and so we post up a picture and ask any women who have prayer requests to comment on the feed, and so we kind of, you know, feel connected that way as well, and we can pray for each other during the week.
Yes. And how do you all feel like about an older woman becoming part of your group and posting things on Facebook? Is there a age, you know, limit?
We normally mark it to 18 to 30, but I mean, everyone's welcome.
Yes, because I suppose as an older woman who loves God, I always think how can the older women also impart some of their wisdom? Not that we want to like push, you know, like, but maybe, this kind of like, I hope they don't go through what I went through and be all alone, and that there are older women to support. Yeah. Do you kind of, are the young women open to that, or they feel like, I don't want the older people like pushing us or controlling us?
Well, I mean, we could it depends how we do it, but I mean, I'd love to even just have, you know, someone like you or another older woman just to come on one of our to one of our events, and we could have a question and answer where we just ask, you know, all the hard questions that we can't find answers to, maybe.
That's right. As a once young person who, I was involved in a group called Women in Ministry, and there was a lady who was in her 70s, and at that time I was in my it was in my 20s or coming early 30s, and I must admit, when she offered to to mentor me, I was like looking at her thinking, she's old enough to be my great grandmother, and she's got. But then I thought I better just be nice to her, and I said, okay, I'll have coffee with you, and it was good for my pride because I turned up at her place, and she had a 3-story house on the edge of Potts Point, which is like it overlooks the harbour bridge, and she had a helicopter pad and a boat pad, and she said, you can come and stay here, and I was like, all right. And I thought she was the maid of the house, but she was actually the owner of the house. Wow. And I just judged her because she was grey-haired and kind of inverted commas at the time. I thought very daggy clothes. Even that word daggy probably it's not relevant to you, but let's say old-fashioned clothes. I kind of thought she can't be understand what I'm going through. But yeah, she was a great mentor in Sydney. So I suppose what also that we would like to talk about is the message of how to bring touch young people with God's love. Yeah, how would we? How would we say? What would we say to young people as an older person, especially a parent? I haven't got children, but I know a lot of my friends say, how do I reach my young person, my daughter and son who are young, who are millennials, with the gospel? What would you recommend?
That's really hard, I'd say, because I guess even with my experience on NET and other ministries, I think the gospel really appeals to young people when it's shared from another young person. It's a peer-to-peer kind of thing where, you want to be in on the secret, and that secret changes your life. Yeah. And so, I guess if older people want to initiate it, it is a bit difficult. But I mean, I guess the best way might be to really explain it in a way that isn't how Jesus changed, you from sin to salvation, using those words, but more just, how personally God spoke to you and your feelings about that and your experience of that. I think we all love to hear a good story, and I think through storytelling.
So not too much theological words. No, that's very good to know. Not too many Bible words, but more words that you can relate to. Yeah, and just simple words.
Tell a good story, I think. Everyone wants to listen.
Yeah. But that's fantastic, and it's been great having you on the show, and wish you all the best with, what's the word of the ministry, the name of the ministry?
Blessed is she.
Blessed is she. All the best with that. And also, if people want to further their faith, you were talking about Alpha. Yeah. So Alpha's another great ministry.
Yeah, they can get it connected in through Alpha. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and goodbye, and God bless you.
Thank you, Geraldine.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Join us again next week. Goodbye, and God bless you.
Bring it to birth and blow where you will. Blow, blow, blow till I be but breath of the Spirit.